This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And I'm really excited to introduce to our global community today somebody who's been sat in your shoes, actually. He has been listening to the pod, and he dropped me a very kind message recently to say that he was enjoying listening to other leaders and felt like he was nodding away and lots of things were resonating with him. And I thought, what a fantastic future guest to have on. So here we are, without further ado. This is Roheel Ahmad, and he's the managing partner of Forsyth Barnes. So welcome to you today. How are you?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for having me. Doing all good. A bright early morning in New York this morning. Got in last night.
Very nice. I was going to say, so you're based in New York. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and what the business does.
Yeah, so to try and give you the short story, I guess, studied a law degree, went from there, got into the recruitment world back in 2010, met my current business partner back then in 2010, started a few months apart from each other. Kind of came up through the ranks in the businesses that we're in and went from top billers to managing teams and offices and so on as well. And then we set up FB in 2016. So from there, this is now our 8th year, 7 years. We've had year-on-year growth every single year. We've now got 3 offices, one in London, which is where we started off in what I'd call a glorified cupboard. One in Nottingham, which we then set up less than a year later. And Scott relocated back to Notts with Kay's wife. And then we set up New York, should have been 2020, but for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. So moved out here last year.
Wow, that's
took
fantastic.
5 others from the UK out here, and they're all relocated permanently. Hired some more out here, and we're going to New York office here. So I live in, got a house in the UK, but I spend my time between all 3 offices.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what does the business actually do? What's your market and industry specialism?
Yeah, so predominantly we're mid to exec search across 3 core markets. So eTail, as we call it internally, which is a lot of like the online retail and consumer products type brands. FinTech, and then a personal favourite, just because we're sports nuts, is the sports and entertainment sectors that we operate in as well.
Some really amazing sectors to be in there. So, I mean, I love the provenance of your story. And I think there'll be plenty of people listening that also did law degrees. That seems to be a really popular route, that you do the law degree. And then at some point in your brain, you go, I'm not actually going to go and follow a career in law, and I'm going to go pursue a career in recruitment. So, and we actually get, as well as, getting messages from leaders like yourself, we do get a lot of people who are just starting out. So, that might be you. Maybe you're listening now and you've just done your LLB honours and thought, this isn't for me. So that's really nice to hear. So did you actually set out I'm really interested to hear that, and, your career journey and how you've set the business up. You've obviously scaled relatively quickly, I would say, from a chronological order point of view. How much of that has been planned and how much of that has been you've just kind of gone with the flow?
I think at the earlier stages, probably a little bit, there was always a plan, right? We always knew we had the ambitions to go global. We always knew that we were going to have a London and a Notts office in the UK. So you've got the kind of broader plan, and certain things along the way and along the journey have kind of either deviated a little bit, or we've kind of gone in a slightly different direction, like along the way as well. But I'd say in the more recent years, then there's been a much more kind of detailed plan which we've followed and so on as well. So the org structure that we've now put in place and we've been able to grow significantly off the back of that. The EMI structure that we've put in place now, where Scott and I have committed to giving a third of the business away to our people. Right. But that is all now following the larger plan.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting, because I think there has to be an element of, I mean, you just said there we were supposed to do it in 2020 and we didn't. You have to have a little bit of a nuance in your plan, don't you, as a business leader? But I think having that strategy of how you're going to grow. So how many heads are you actually at now across, as we record this now?
About 80 plus.
Wow, God, that's phenomenal growth since 2016.
Yeah.
So your 8th year, that is really quite remarkable. I want to pick up on something that you said, and I don't know if it was flippantly, but I do want to pick up on something here, in that you went from being top performers to becoming managers of teams.
Yes.
That is actually very often, my day job is rec to rec. So I very often get people coming to me who are either in this quandary of whether they want to go down that billing manager route, because, there are lots of considerations, or those who are being managed by ex-top billers who are very ineffectual billing managers because they haven't necessarily got the behaviours. So for you, how did you ensure that you harnessed all the skills and attributes that made you a top biller, but that you could then, I guess, replicate or pass on to the people that you were leading in your team?
I would say honestly, that's probably the biggest challenge. I think a lot of other founders or senior managers in the business would tell you something similar. That is the hardest challenge, bar none. I would. Both Scott and I were almost kind of not, I won't say self-taught, but self-experienced in terms of management. I don't think either of us have ever kind of been put through a management course or formal management training or anything like that. We learned on the job. We've learned through time. We've learned through our own mistakes. We've learned through our own successes. We've tried to learn from other people and influences as well. So looking at that, we've always tried to pass on our wisdom to our people. But then also at the same time, I've looked at it and said, well, I don't want that same set of struggles for the same reasons for our people as well. So we will put them through something which is a lot more structured. We will put them through something which is a lot more supportive. We will put them through external type training to actually lend in towards management and so on as well. So as an example, with my senior leadership team across the business, we have like an industry expert coming in every quarter. Now, very rarely are they recruitment related. We've had someone come in 2 quarters in a row who's been all about leadership excellence. And Mark actually delivers that to global corporates, so to Sky, Vodafone, M&S, etc. And he's been doing this for 25 years, like across all industries. So his whole piece was about service and leadership excellence. So our people will benefit so much more from that rather than just having, quite often what we see in recruitment, a very kind of narrow-minded rec view to things.
Yeah, definitely. But you're creating a more holistic view. I really like that. And I don't think there are many people that I've come across where they actually bring in somebody externally from the industry to teach them about whether it's leadership, or it could be business development, it could be whatever.
There are some elements where we do look at the specialism. For instance, the last bit of training we had, Ben Stocken, for anyone who wants to use him. Little plug for him. But he came in, now operates not exclusively in recruitment, but does a lot in the recruitment world. Came from like a sporting coaching background as well, which is one of the reasons why we really like Ben. And he talked about how to implement a sales strategy, all sorts of leadership in that senior team as well. So we try to take people from a wider skill set than just rec, because the day job tends to be a lot about rec itself.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think that's actually very unique. And so, and obviously I guess the dilemma that someone sat here now, top biller, there's always the quandary of, if I then move into that leadership role, I'm not going to earn as much money. So I think it's ensuring that they're doing it for the right reasons. What are you doing that with your head for anyone that's listening? Is kind of going,
I'm thinking of some of my people now, and they're still earning very good amounts on. So if I think some of our divisional managers, our billing manager population, they're still doing very well personally. They're getting management comms on top and bonuses and everything on top of it as well. So I know that's the kind of industry expectation. And with some people it will be, because they will just go to the management side really quickly. But we've got a number of people who are actually doing better for it.
So right, we want to know your formula. So what are you doing to ensure that they're not burning out? Because doing the job of a billing manager is the hardest job. There is no question. How are you ensuring they're not burning out, that they're still performing to ensure that they're earning on their personal billings, but they're giving and they're altruistic to their team? What are you doing to ensure
that? If I could sit here and say I've got the final perfect formula, then I don't think we'd just be at 80. We'd probably be at 800 by now. But for all, I guess, intents and purposes, it's a question that I'm asking myself all the time. Is what we internally call the FB way, is it as simplistic as possible? And then I guess for that divisional manager population, it's me always asking the question of myself, as well as of my MDs for our offices as well. What's holding them back? What's stopping them from focusing on what they need to be? Are they now getting involved in X, Y, and Z? Cool. How much time is that taking up? How much of a distraction is it? Let's find a way to take it away from them. Then I'll often speak to my business partner, Scott. Can we do something about this? Can this be brought into a different team? Can we take this away from them, which they're capable of doing? And in some respects, they've got it's good progression and development for them. But do we want that for the whole group? Probably not. So can we take care of that centrally as a business through other people, through automation, whatever it might be? And it's just trying to keep their job as simple as possible so they can be the best that they can be at the core things that they need to. And then they can look at their development when they're ready to.
So that actually the element of the job that they're sort of excelling in is the people side, rather than all the other stuff that can get automated, I guess.
It's trying to get them focused and doing the most of what they're good at and what they should be doing, rather than getting bogged down in loads of internal meetings or loads of compliance or admin or whatever it is. We know there's enough admin to do, but anything that we can kind of take away from them to help them focus on the things that they want to be doing, that they enjoy doing, that they will add the most value to, then we'll see how we can take that away from them.
So the secret formula, actually, and I'm hoping I'm understanding this right, is not necessarily actually what they're doing differently as billing managers, but as a business, you're creating a structure and a support system that they can lean into so that they can just then be propelled forward in actually billing and allowing their team to bill. They're not getting bogged down in all the other stuff.
We try to, yeah, that's exactly it. I think it's the culture and the environment that we're trying to build. And don't get me wrong, that's not to denigrate anything that they are doing themselves.
No.
Fantastic people, and
Absolutely.
the work ethic is phenomenal. But we try to, and continuing to try to build that environment where they're able to focus on the things that they enjoy doing the most, that will progress them to the next level, and they'll add the most value in as well. And we try to take as much of the other stuff away from them as possible.
Oh, definitely. I mean, two things there. First and foremost, don't ever listen to a podcast because you're trying to cheat your way to the top. You have to work hard. You have to put the hours in. To become an expert, it's 10,000 hours, I think, of work that you just can't buy. You can't get instant gratification for. You can't just use a chat bot to get you there. So that's a reality check. And I love the fact that you use the word enjoy. Just let people go and enjoy what they do, get them in their natural flow. And guess what? They'll probably make a lot more money and be much more successful. So I love that you're almost simplifying, oversimplifying it. But I actually really like that mantra. I think that's clearly what has sort of got you to the point that you have. So obviously your sectors are at the sort of pinnacle, I guess, in terms of what technology is happening and how they're using AI. So given that I think we're at a really pivotal point as an industry, as a recruitment industry, with, chat GPT is just suddenly, we weren't even talking about that in 2022. So now it's like, that's all anyone's thinking about with artificial intelligence. You've talked about automation. Where do you see the next 12 months, sort of 2 years of an industry, of what we should and can be doing to ensure that we're using it, but it's not damaging us as a profession, I suppose?
Yeah, it makes sense. Honestly, I think that we're still such an infancy stage for all of this. It almost feels like, from remembering, I guess, from old school history, but the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, in that the way that we're operating now will change so drastically over the next sort of 12, 36 months or so, that we're going to look back and say, how was it done before, etc. I don't even think we are even touching the sides on the capabilities around AI. And when you've got global tech leaders, you Elon Musk and a bunch of others who are all saying, well, hang on, we need to stop this. We need to slow this down to actually realize its capabilities and make sure we don't take this too far too quickly. Then I look at that, and they're at the pinnacle of what? Global tech, right? Us as an industry, there's so much more to come. So it's almost so hard to predict that. I guess there are ways to create better efficiencies. I guess there's a thing that we have to ensure as an industry, that we protect that ability for people to build relationships and it doesn't become transactional globally. The UK market is known as becoming a more transactional market, especially compared to a lot of European, US, Australian markets as well. Right. It's not losing that sense of relationship building, that sense of people in what we do, and for it to become so transactional. And that's something that we're looking at the automation pieces. How can our people benefit from greater efficiencies, but at the same time, not losing that ability to connect to someone, not losing that ability to pitch someone, and being wholly reliant on messaging or in like AI or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And everything that you said there, I echo. And it always staggers me that that's our sort of external global reputation, that, I'm here shouting from the rooftops that we are relationship builders. We are meant to be consultative in what we do. And I actually think that automation, and as we, I think you're probably right in terms of the timing of it. I do think we're at the point of a massive revolution. If we are going to use it effectively, those who are transactional, you are the ones that will become redundant as a job, because you'll get replaced by the automation. It's as simple as that. So I think it's about, I want to attract people to the global community of the podcast who want to be the influencers, who want to be the go-to people in their market. And the only way you can do that is through relationships. So I think I'm really pleased that you've kind of put your flag in the sand with that. And so you've talked about, I mean, we don't often get people on who work in such niche markets such as sports. And you mentioned before that you've launched a podcast as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'd love to say it's me, but it's not. It's I'm looking at them over there actually. Samir's in our New York office. It runs our sports and entertainment department out here.
Yeah.
Very well networked across sporting organisations, governing bodies out here around the UK, because he's moved over from the UK market as well as like the event stadiums and so on here as well. So Madison Square Garden's a client of ours, lucky enough to get tickets sorted out for us, and hospitality sorted out for us when we're out here for big events and so on as well. So he's doing one called Path to the Pros. Currently, he's also recording content kind of ahead of time, but currently I think he's released about 5 episodes so far, 4 or 5 episodes so far.
Great.
With good senior execs in the marketplace. And he's always looking to build his network within there as well. So it's great for him to hear people's stories. A lot of people transition from the actual sporting side into the business side. And look, I'm a sports nut, so I don't add much value from an actual sporting knowledge or a network knowledge, but I'll happily ride his coattails to go to the events and to go to the stadiums and everything as well. So yeah.
Do you need a chaperone at all? You know, if you can get tickets for this.
At this point, I don't think I think he knows he doesn't have much of a choice. It's just going to tag along. Can often talk about the extra value add that we can add to them as an organisation.
Yeah.
But look, to be at a Formula One race in Barcelona, to be at Barcelona's ground, to be at Madison Square Garden or the Staples Centre, like I would follow most sports, and it's just
absolutely. Well, it is, and actually, I mean, there is a reason. Obviously, we'll definitely share the link. So it's called Path to the Pros. I love the name of that. That's great, and good luck. It's Sohail, you said, so we'll make sure we tag him on the post as well. Samir, sorry, and make sure he gets all the recognition, because I know how hard work it is to have a podcast.
Yeah, he's doing great.
You know, just this is a really nice way to tail end the podcast, because sports background is obviously one of the best backgrounds for recruiters, because obviously we're competitive. We tend to always be looking at high performance, the whole Kaizen mentality. So have you seen that? That's why do you think there's a correlation there? And then talk to us about maybe what we can learn as recruiters from the sporting people that you're partnering.
Yeah, so 100%. I think probably the first thing that people with a strong sporting background have, and that we particularly like, and probably most across the industry do too, is the work ethic. Is the very first thing. To get to a certain level at sports, you have to go above and beyond the norm that most people are willing to put in. It's also the discipline. Yeah. So again, if you're coming through a sporting background at a young age, quite often you are making the sacrifices that your peers at that age aren't. They're out partying, you're out training. They're out drinking, you're out maintaining your diet, you're in the gym, like et cetera as well, with most of them. You're out practicing all the time. And you've got those sacrifices that others haven't been willing to make at such a young part of their life. So that tends to transcend very, very well into the kind of person that we're looking for. Then the other bit that you tend to have in it is they have a certain, I won't say necessarily just eloquence, but they have a certain way of building relationships with people, which in the sports world is brilliant to network with people and so on as well. And we've seen that too. And they're just more natural at it as well.
Yeah.
So that tends to shine through very, very well for the job that we do. There's a competitive nature of what we do as well. It goes hand in hand, right?
I agree.
There's so many underlying qualities that work well for us as an organisation. Scott and I are we're sports nuts ourselves. So that tends to work from a cultural standpoint, but also from an expectation standpoint, that you've got a lot of the right things kind of hardwired into you from a very young age, before you've even stepped foot through the door.
We talk about resilience, don't we? But generally, people who do any kind of sport or fitness, they've probably faced some sort of disappointment at some point, whether it's in a race or a competition, and you just have to get on. I mean, my daughter is a professional, well, semi-professional dancer. She's a street dancer. Wow. So I am dance mum. So I think I get a badge as well. But honestly, no, everything that you said there, you know, when she during summer clubs, you know, she'll be off dancing when all her friends are out shopping or whatever they might be doing. And I think that there's a real dedication and self-belief that sports people generally have. But I agree with everything that you've said around that tenacity and around that. Actually, I don't know if this is a word you were searching for, but I generally think people who have a dedication to physical well-being like that in the sports capacity, they have a real grace about them. Like
Yeah,
have a real
yeah, that's a nice way
dignity.
to put it, actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
they do.
they're not sweating the small stuff. They've got a real goal, and they just don't they tend to be quite positive people, generally speaking. So I think we should
Yeah.
definitely, as an industry, because let's face it, we have a bottleneck as an industry when it comes to attracting talent. And if I know when I'm interviewing, whilst I pride myself on working at the senior end of the market, I absolutely relish getting new people through. And the ones who have generally had some sort of sporting prowess, even if they've not quite made it to the top, but they've pushed themselves, you know that they're going to make it in recruitment. So we need more.
I think there's a huge market for you there, because there's a well-known reputation within the sporting world that their kids especially kind of get chewed up and spit out, right? And if they've made it, you've made it, but the chance of that are so slim. And they have a bottleneck of people coming through it there. And then once they're out, there's so many stories, especially within football, of there's no support or very little support. Well, what do they do from there? Their whole world's crashed and so on. So I think there's a great, if you can kind of plug that where you've got a path from, right, you're trying to make a professional sports, come this way. I think there's a great line of people come through for it. We've got several in the business as well.
I agree, and I think we could wax lyrical about the whole barrier to entry, but I think given that as a parent myself, the degree option is going to diminish for a lot of reasons, actually, not least that I think for a lot of young people they're very disillusioned by the education system, but that is a whole different podcast. I think actually what we're looking for is behaviours and values, and I think everything you said there, those are the people we want in the industry. We don't want someone that's just done a degree because that's what they were supposed to do. So I think everything you've said there will elevate the perception of our industry, not just in the UK, but across the globe. And we do have a global audience. So thank you to wherever you're listening today. And I knew you'd be brilliant, and you were wonderful on this side of the desk. So thank you for joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.